Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Pure Nintendo Podcast. This is your weekly dose of all things Nintendo. My name is Jemma, and joining me this week, I have three excellent friends. I have the knowledgeable Kirk. Welcome back, Kirk.
It doesn't work, right?
I know. It's a
I
K
mean, I
word,
get
but
yeah,
it's
it is a
just...
K word, but
knowledgeable Kirk. Yeah.
But you are knowledgeable.
that's right. I'm knowledgeable, as Justin said. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back, Kirk. We have the tenacious Trev. Welcome back, Trev.
Yeah, I guess that works. Had you used that one before, though?
Maybe. Stop it, Trev.
It's because she's tenacious.
Nah.
Yes, thank you. And we have the joyful Justin. Welcome back, Justin.
Hey, good to be back.
Yay. Yes, it's a big, we got a lot to talk about today because, of course, during the week, Nintendo did the thing that everyone was hoping and sort of expecting them to do, which was drop a Switch 2 teaser trailer, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to get right into that and break it down and talk about our thoughts and feelings and what we think is happening next with that. We just want to give a quick update on our magazine because that's very close to being printed. So if you are a subscriber, look for that in the next week or two in your mailbox. And thank you so much for your support. If you do want to grab a copy, it's not too late. Head on over to patreon.com/PureNintendo and you can get a printed copy of the Pure Nintendo magazine in your mailbox. But let's get to the big news of the week, which was, the Switch 2. It's officially announced. We all knew this was happening. I guess I want to talk about first impressions. And do we want to say that the leakers were right at this point? Or do we just want to ignore that whole thing? Who wants to kick things off? Who's most excited to talk about the Switch 2? Let's say, Kirk, do you want to go first?
I guess I can. Yeah. I don't know that I'm the most excited, though.
You are now.
Fair enough. I'm very happy that we got this. I don't think that there was anything hardware specific, at least visually, in that teaser that we hadn't seen before. But I also think that maybe that's why Nintendo did it. They don't let leakers dictate their schedule. I understand that, but it was more like, what people have been saying. Here it is. It's official. It looks like what you said was going to look like, and don't worry about it until April 2nd. April 2nd is when it matters because that's when we're going to talk games. We're going to talk specs. So it was kind of like, let's just shut up everybody who's talking about this and worrying about this and going on about this and just let them see it. Yeah, this is exactly what it is. And there's more to come.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good way to do it. I think, because it's been the rumors, the specs, the leaks have been ramping up lately. Everyone was really calling for something to be announced. I don't know why. Do we know why January 16th was the date people had in mind? Does anyone know why that was?
I do not.
So there were some leakers. I follow family boards a little bit and was watching some of the Reddit subreddit for the Switch 2, and there was he's a fairly known leaker, Nate the Hate or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And he, I guess he always coincides his podcast coming out prior to something big like a Nintendo Direct. And I guess on Sunday or Monday, he's like, yep, it's almost done. I'm going to publish it. And so then people are reacting with eyes emojis and like, what? Everyone starts to, and then I guess when that podcast dropped on YouTube, he mentioned the 16th. Now, some people had said, oh, he didn't mention it would be a shadow drop. He basically just said there's something happening. It's going to be announced on the 16th. A lot of people were anticipating like some sort of a tweet that would go live the day prior, so there were a bunch of people that were kind of disappointed that like Wednesday we didn't see anything. But I think Nintendo truly just wanted to shadow drop it and do it on the day of. So anyways, but yeah, that's where he was kind of, it wasn't just him too. There were a lot of others that corroborated him. So a lot of other reputable folks from Eurogamer and some of these other outlets that said, yeah, we're hearing similar. So
yeah, interesting. So it's called the Nintendo Switch 2. We know that now officially. I think Justin, you called that. You said that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You said it's going to be called something
It was
simple.
that was one of the predictions I carried forward, but I did change that. I think last year I had put it that it'd be called like the Switch Pro or Nitro or something like that. But with some hindsight now, I was like, yeah, maybe they should just keep it simple. Just do it 2 years.
Yeah, I think they did the right thing. So Trev, what do you think about all this? Were you surprised, happy? What did you think?
Well, I get a few thoughts, and we're probably
Okay.
gonna break down some of it more. But I mean, as far as the leaks go, I didn't pay attention to the leaks.
Mm,
I wanted to be surprised. It's not like new systems are launching every other year,
yeah.
so it's an experience. I wanted to be, the hype to build and to be excited. Not to mention how many leakers missed the mark. For everyone that's right, there's half a dozen that were way off, right? So, I'm not passing judgment on leakers. I know in the industry we're in, it's a thing, and certainly as news outlets, we can't escape it. But people who are leaking, I mean, let's call it what it is. They're doing something that's, you know, illegal, if not immoral. And,
Mm,
you know, do they have a legit source? Are they making it up as an educated guess? They're just looking for attention, right? And flattery. So,
mm.
um, but again, I'm not trying to pass judgment, but I will say because I was not actively following the leaks, it did catch me a little bit by surprise. I don't necessarily see the logic in announcing it in January when we're not going to get a proper reveal until April, but I mean, we're going to talk about that more. But yeah, it was. I posted on Blue Sky, and Kirk might be the only one old enough to get the reference, but I did a GIF from an old Wendy's commercial from the early '80s. "Where's the beef?" Which was also a catchphrase from was it Walter Mondale, the presidential candidate who got blown out? Anyway,
Uh,
it's like, yeah, it's cool they show us this system, but what's there? They're not really
mm,
showing us much of anything. So I need to see more to get properly excited. I need to see
yeah.
like an actual game or some specific hardware features. And again, we're going to break down what little we did get, but how
Hmm.
excited can you get for a 2-minute reveal?
Yeah, exactly. 2 minutes and 21 seconds. So short. And I woke up to this news because I think it dropped around midnight my time in Australia. And I think it was pretty early your time as well over in the US. It was a weird time, right? I think it was early in the morning or something. I can't remember, but it was a weird time. Even in Japan, it would have been really late at night, like 11 p.m. ish, something like that. Really, really late at night. So it was a shadow drop, exactly as you said. It was a shadow drop. It was completely out of the blue, in a sense, from Nintendo's perspective. They didn't warn us. Obviously, the leakers called it, but um, from Nintendo's perspective, it was a shadow drop. It was just, here you go, here's take a look at this kind of thing, which I kind of love. I kind of love that they did it that way. I think they're trying to take ownership back of all of the, I don't want to call it controversy, the leaks, let's just say that, because, people are harrowing on about it, saying all this stuff, and Nintendo's kind of lost that control where they can, talk about their thing when they want to. So I'm a bit like you, Trevor. I've been mostly avoiding the leaks. I've seen it, of course, because you can't escape it. It's on your feed. It's right there, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen pictures. I've obviously heard the date being thrown around, January 16th. So I was a little bit excited on January 16th because I was trying to see what would happen, if anything. And then, of course, I woke up on the 17th here and saw this news. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no specs. There's not a lot of detail. There's just a really, I mean, what would you call it? The video. It's like a demo video that you'd show off at a show or something, like a
Yeah.
flyer. Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of is exactly that. When I would go to like the Macworld expos and Apple
Mm.
would announce a new laptop or the iPhone or something, they would announce it. They would show some pictures, and then we get a 2-minute video of just the sexy in quotes hardware.
Yeah.
And then after that, they would talk about it for half an hour. We got the sexy hardware part without
Mm.
any commentary after it because we're not there yet. And I
Yeah.
think they felt that they had to push this out early because it was already getting out there from other sources.
Yes, exactly. Did you say something about that too, Justin, about Nintendo becoming more like Apple? Was that something you said recently?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between them sometimes. About how they always have that closeness to the hardware and the software. They make their own hardware and they make their own software. So they, I think, are similar in that regard, and they're similarly closed chest, close to the chest type of company. Obviously there's plenty of leaks that happen with Apple. That they have a pretty large supply chain that, it's hard. Like if you want to find the information about what is in the next Apple product, there's some sources, to get that. So I would say by and large, though, what leaked from the Switch 2 was less than what we typically know from an Apple product perspective. So, I'm sure Nintendo is still a little, miffed that some of that stuff leaked out, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting, like in hindsight, to see when's the actual release date and all of that. But they said something like they wanted, I think in one of their investor calls over the last year, they said they did not want a scenario where, kind of scalpers, they don't want a lack of supply at launch. So they said that they would have this probably in production for longer than they did for the first Switch. And with that, I think is going to have more opportunity for leaks to happen. Let's say this did start production back in September, October, when some of these leaks started to trickle out. Well, maybe they wanted 6 months of production to lead up to that. So I was hoping Nintendo would have had a video like this back in October. They could have gotten ahead of some of these leaks a bit more. But I think it's fine. And I think some people, we kind of live in our bubble a little bit of the Nintendo community and like, oh man, the leaks are out there. And it's like, in reality, a lot of these enthusiast forums and Reddit subreddits and all that stuff, by and large, the broad public is not aware of this. It was not aware of the leaks prior to this video coming out.
That is very true. Yes, that's a really good point.
Like I think some people are like, oh, Nintendo's really mad or they're worried and all this other stuff. And they rushed this video out. And it's like, no, I think they probably had a timeline for this, and this matched well with the status of the software that they're going to have for launch and the production timeline and all that. So I don't think Nintendo rushed anything out. I did think this video was a little scarce on details. I would have liked to have a little bit more, but I thought it was really important that they did announce a date for when we can find out more.
Yes. And that's how they've taken back control, I think, because now we have something to work towards that date. Yeah, which I have to say, when I first saw it, because we do dates different in a different format to the US, right? I thought it was February. At first, I'm like, oh, cool, it's February the 4th. That's not far. And then I was looking at some breakdowns and stuff, and people were saying April. I'm like, oh, crap, it's US date, of course. It's
typical US with the they should just put the day of the month, or the month. Just say April 2nd.
Yeah, because I was watching it on Nintendo of America's channel. I wonder if on the Australian YouTube version, like Nintendo's Australian channel, I wonder if they had a separate version with the right date, probably. Like the right date for Australians. Can't we all disagree on a date format? I don't care which one it is. Let's just agree on a format. Yeah, so I was really excited at first. I'm like, oh, that's only like 2 weeks away. That's pretty cool. And I'm like, no way, that's 2 months away. More than 2 months away. Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, so yes, with very, very few details. I mean, it looks pretty beefy. It looks pretty big, right? And speaking of Apple, it kind of looks a bit more like a tablet size at this point, right? Like it's pretty tall, and they've definitely made it big. Let's talk about the Joy-Cons, I guess, because that's a big part of it. And I know some people have said the Joy-Cons are too small. We all know about the drift issues. That's obviously not addressed in this video, but they're definitely bigger. Do we like the look of them as well? I kind of think the look is cool with obviously the original Switch had the kind of orangey, would you call it orange or red, whatever that color is, plus the blue. Now they've taken that and it's really kind of a just a detail on the side of it, or that inset that does it pop out, that little thing with the L and R buttons now? That's kind of cool.
I was wondering how they connect to the tablet portion itself, because you say what you will about the existing Joy-Cons, they kind of locked in pretty good.
They did.
But on this one, it looked like there was just the one connection, and maybe, once it's in hand, I'm sure it'll feel sturdy enough. But yeah, I don't know. I do think it's interesting, though, because the Joy-Cons are bigger. How's that going to affect, like, existing accessories? Like, could that work with like the Ring Fit Ring, for instance, or stuff like that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. It really is. And are they magnetized? I mean, again, they didn't give details, but does it look like they are magnetized? Because that was a thing people had previously thought or kind of leaked, I suppose. They look like they kind of clip on as magnets, or do you think they actually plug into that little, whatever that little input thingy is?
I think there would have to be some kind of magnetic connection too, because that, the connection, the port that you're plugging it into doesn't look like it's nearly enough to keep everything in place.
No, it doesn't, does it? No. And now the sound has changed also. It's not that click, click. So now when we have the Switch 2 game trailer, are we going to have that new sound, which is a bit different? Yeah.
It's funny you say that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just talking about the sound. When you were asking earlier, what did it remind us of? That's what it reminded me of. It took me I didn't think of it till just then, but on like YouTube, they have those videos. What are they? ASMR. Yeah. Like where it's just, they'll do like unboxings or unwrappings, and it's like enhanced sound effects, audio sensory thing. And that's what this reveal reminded me of. It's like every little thing was like a sound effect to jump out at you, to, I guess, add to the sex appeal of the unveiling. But yeah, it's a good question, because that's kind of the classic sound in recent years for the snap. And what are they going to have?
7 years worth. Yeah. Justin, what were you going to say?
No, yeah. Someone was describing the Switch 2 sound as maybe like a clap, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
You had a snap with the Switch, and it's more of a clap, and that is kind of the motion, right? Like if it is magnetizing and it's just kind of attaching from the sides and not sliding down, it is more of a clap, like your Joy-Cons coming together on the Switch. So,
that's a good way to think of it. Yeah, I like that.
And it was slightly different, right? Like I haven't listened to the sound over and over necessarily, but it did sound a little bit different. Maybe even like a clapper of like on a film set, right? The action. Clap.
Yeah. I can hear that, I think, in my head. No, you say it.
Anyway, I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be become iconic too of what I'm very curious to see what they'll do. I loved the little subtle animation that they had on the current Switch when the Joy-Cons slide in, and you see that on the screen, and it even showed the color. So like whatever variation of color Joy-Con you have, it was like that color as it's
true
snapped on. So it'd be cool to have something like that when they magnetize. Does it have something that kind of reverberates, or I don't know?
Surely. And then in the video how the Joy-Cons were like kind of skating around like, I don't know, mice. Can I say? Was that a
Splatoon? The Splatoon squids or whatever.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Does that mean anything, or is that just a cool look? They're not actually going to be used as a mouse, right?
It's probably highlighting that they're going to drift. They're drifting across the table.
Yeah.
They're like, now with more drifting, 100% more drifting.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw some people mentioning that haha, like, hey, Joy-Cons are still drifting. But I don't want to spoil it necessarily for you guys, but I have kept up on the leaks, and
Justin,
I can't help myself, Trev. But yes, it is. It does appear there's going to be like a mouse mode or something.
Interesting.
So something that, like, if you rewatch the video, if you look just above the the port that the Joy-Con, when it connects into, you can see there's like all these pins, that like, I don't know, there's like 15 pins or something. But just above where that port is on the Joy-Con itself is another kind of square hole. And if you look closely, that is an optical sensor, like what you would see on the bottom of a mouse.
Yep.
And so again, we won't know until Nintendo, of course, officially announces this, but they seem to allude to it when they're kind of moving around on the side like that.
Yeah.
Is that potentially you could have, maybe you're playing a real-time strategy game on the Switch too, or maybe Splatoon or Metroid Prime 4, or some sort of like first-person shooter, something that might be enhanced by having a mouse-like control. That you just flip the Joy-Con up on its side like that. And I imagine, like you saw, it had some sort of a little foot, that kind of goes on it, kind of like the ergonomic Joy-Con straps that go on the Switch 1. So anyways, I do hope they come out with something a bit more ergonomic for, like, I could kind of envision almost like a typical computer mouse, right? That kind of like fits the palm of your hand. But it has like a little slot that you could slide the vertical Joy-Con into. It's got that optical sensor there, and then you have the L and ZL or R and ZR buttons exposed on top. So hey, if you're a left-handed person and you put that left Joy-Con in there, so they could have some sort. I could see a third-party accessory. Companies going wild for that and doing different variations of what that could look like. But
that would open things up a lot, right?
Oh man,
yeah.
Think about it think about all the PC developers out there that make games. Like I think of Baldur's Gate 3 and some of these big games that have been on the PC. Their menus are kind of driven around mouse input. There's very complex menu systems and all this stuff. And so maybe Nintendo was like, hey, we want to cater more to third-party developers. How can we make it easier for them? And I could see some of those games that have just really heavy user interfaces, or you're playing again a real-time strategy game and you want to click and drag to select multiple units. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And then think about, typically I would say in first-person shooter games you're kind of at a disadvantage on a console with a controller. But now Switch players could have the unique advantage between Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, that they could almost have similar precision that a PC gamer might have. Anyways,
and how many ports have we seen of PC games that aren't really catered for the Switch, or because of the control situation? Whereas if you had the option of a mouse, that would be
it'll help with optimization. I mean, there's really, Justin already named a bunch of genres, but point and click simulations. Like, has anyone predicted return of Mario Paint? Because if not, I think pure Nintendo should predict it right here and now.
Yes,
that you're spot on. Like, Trev, you could have a whole renaissance of new, like what were some of the drawing games that they had on the DS, right? Didn't they have like there was like a Pokemon Academy,
Oh yeah, the Art Academy.
Art Academy.
Art Academy series. Like this could lend itself to a number of different scenarios.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty exciting when you talk about it like that. Yeah. And I'd forgotten Nintendo did have the mouse back in the Super Nintendo era. I had that. I probably still have the mouse and mouse pad somewhere at my mom's house. I should dig it out. I can use the mouse pad for the Switch too.
And I think kind of the only downside I've seen with the video, like that some people have said, is that the Switch 2 just looks really similar to the first Switch. Now, I would say that is almost a positive. Like, yes, they're kind of going with what people wanted, of like, hey, just do more of that, improve the Joy-Cons, do all these other, little improvements, and, increase the graphical capability, all that stuff. But I think Nintendo wasn't fully content with that. And so I think this mouse feature is a pretty big feature that, could go unnoticed in that trailer, and
Yeah.
and I think for Nintendo, having it be called the Switch 2 sort of begs the question of how much more are you adding to that scenario, right? Like they had handheld mode, tabletop mode, and docked mode, right, for Switch.
Mm-hmm.
So is this mouse mode that kind of almost lends itself to maybe a tabletop mode? But how many other ways are there adding to this that kind of switch how you play? So I think we're just scratching the surface. I could see some other scenarios. That USB-C port that's on the top of the system,
Mm-hmm.
that could open up some possibilities for other peripherals. You could see maybe the return of like the Game Boy camera, Trev.
Oh man, I was just thinking about that actually the other night.
Game Boy printer, right?
Oh man,
Anyway,
I want it. They'd have to let you print it out though in black and white and really chunky pixels. They'd have to have that option.
70 by 70 resolution.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't think it's just to Justin's point about. I'm sorry, Kirk. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm a little more nervous about this whole mouse thing than you guys are, I think.
Why is that?
Mainly because I don't know that I always want my gaming system to dictate the way I play it. And if developers rely too much on that, now I can't play these games in dock mode. I can't take it on the bus because what am I going to put the mouse on? If I'm holding the system in one hand and I'm using the mouse on another, what am I using the mouse on and how am I not dropping the console while I'm holding it? So if people are developing games because now we have the mouse ability or they're porting them, that's fine. But I sure hope they still continue to include the options for, okay, if you're not using this mouse, you're still going to be able to play the game using the standard controls and not get lazy with that because you do need to optimize that a lot in order to make it work.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kirk. Like, and hopefully Nintendo's aware of that on the development side and says, hey, like yeah, you have this option, but it's an additional option, right? Like you still need to have these other, like, because I mean, and they still need to have moving around with arrow buttons and pressing A, right, and on a menu. So you'd think that hopefully this would just be in addition to some other method. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and to be fair, I totally trust Nintendo to get this right. They don't get these things wrong, hardly ever. But we'll see what some of the third-party developers do and how easy that is to work with.
Yeah. Excellent point from you. Thank you, Kirk. That is a really good point. Because I mean, handheld is obviously one of the main modes that Nintendo's the hybrid console is all about. Docked and handheld is like the two main modes, and you don't want to take away from that. A lot of people would probably would be playing it on a bus or whatever, on a plane or wherever you might be. On a plane, you probably could use the mouse a little bit because you got the tray. Put the tray down, you get your mouse there.
They'd have to have touch controls too, I would think, to substitute. If it was a mouse-driven game, they'd have to have that as an option.
True.
I would think. I did just want to add, though, to a point Justin made, that evidently some are concerned that the Switch 2 looks too much like the original unit, and is that really a big deal? I mean, I think like the jump from like the DS to the 3DS. Now, granted, there were special editions and whatnot, and different models. But if you look at a DS and a 3DS, like just a base unit, they're not terribly different, and I don't think that impacted its reception. So, I think maybe people just who are inclined to complain will always find something to complain about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if it looked too different, they would complain about that. I like the look of the old one. Why change it?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think this is a vocal minority, right, Trev? It's like I think by and large, this is what people wanted, even though it may be considered safe from some perspectives. Like, oh, they were really successful with the Switch. This is very similar. Well, why not? And like you said, Nintendo's done these very iterative systems previously, like on the handheld side with the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. A lot of those had similar form factors with some new buttons and new graphical capabilities. So it's not out of the even realm of precedence for what Nintendo's done in the past. I think it's on the home console side where I could see people like, they've always done something different and weird,
Yeah.
But to be fair, that's really only been since the GameCube and to the Wii, right? Like from the GameCube to the Wii to the Wii U to the Switch, those are all vastly different, right? But if you think about the GameCube back, I mean, the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, GameCube, you could argue Nintendo was always in the graphical arms race back then, right?
Yeah.
Like they were, constantly coming out. Granted, it was a brand new looking system, but they were constantly just adding different controllers, buttons, interfaces, and new graphical capabilities. So, I don't know. It's.
I think the key thing, you're right. I agree. It's a minority, but the key word there is vocal minority. Because I think people who are okay with it or maybe indifferent to it are the kinds that aren't likely to say anything. It's those in the minority that are often the loudest. So it makes it seem like there's more of them than it is, especially, if you kind of navigate those circles on the internet and in websites or forums or social media. So take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the one game that was teased in this little trailer. And can you imagine playing Mario Kart with a mouse? Would that work? Maybe not so much. So this looks like a new Mario Kart, right? We don't know what it's called. Could be Mario Kart 9. Could be Mario Kart, I don't know, NX or whatever they want to call it. I don't know, but probably it's 9, right? But were we excited to see this? I mean, we all love Mario Kart, I think, to some extent. Well, we all do, don't we? We were all pretty much expecting a Mario Kart launch window, so it's not really a surprise. But it's nice to see. I just wanted to quickly ask, and I don't think this is the case personally, but you were talking about packaged games, Trev, I think, as one of your predictions. Could you imagine Mario Kart being packaged?
I cannot imagine it being a pack-in just because, I mean, how many has Mario Kart 8 sold?
Yeah, exactly.
What are we up to?
Yeah.
Like 70 million or some ridiculous number. So I don't think they would leave that money on the table, so to speak. But, it's interesting. You think back to like the Switch unveiling. We say this one was a little late. I wasn't actually thrilled with the original Switch unveiling. They spent a lot of time. I think they started off with 1-2 Switch, which looked underwhelming to me. That would be an ideal pack-in. So maybe, like, let's presume these are mouse controls. Maybe they could package something to highlight the advantage of a mouse for people who are not used to using mice. I mean, not everyone, is going to know about a mouse control. Like we use touchpads or touchscreens or, what. I still have a mouse because I have an old-fashioned computer, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I could see almost like a Wii Play style game being a good pack-in. Trev, like maybe based off of some of those kind of old arcade games, Target Practice, Tanks, that type of thing. Because Mario Kart as a pack-in would be a real. Like you definitely move systems, right? Like you definitely, people will be like, sure, I'll get the one with the Mario Kart bundled, but
but it's a bit of a waste, isn't it? Because it is is it the top selling Switch game?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we got a very, very small glimpse. It doesn't show a whole lot. It looks like a new track, some deserty kind of track.
What was it, like 5 seconds, maybe 6 seconds?
Oh, yeah, gosh, it's so short. And then you see the Switch get docked, while we're watching Mario Kart. It's like, no, bring me back to Mario Kart. So yeah, not a whole lot, but I did, I noticed, and I've heard other people talk about this, that on the track it looks like there's 24 spaces for drivers. I don't know if you guys noticed that as well, but there's like I think it's at the very start of when Mario Kart is on the screen, and you're kind of looking top down on the road, and they're already racing. They're not starting the race. They're obviously coming through for a second lap or something, but there's like 24 little white, kind of those little, whatever you call those, not squares, they're kind of half squares. The starting positions. 24. Does that mean 24 players? What does this mean? Any ideas? Any speculation? Justin?
I could definitely see them, going a bit bigger there. I'd be curious if they one limitation that the Switch had and previous generations too was 4-player local for Mario Kart. I thought it was awesome when Smash Brothers you could do 8-player local.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really cool to at least have that capability locally to do up to 8 for local co-op multiplayer. And yeah, so that kind of would maybe lend itself. Hey, if you got more more players and NPCs that can be on the track at once, maybe these tracks are just bigger and can allow for that. Because I could see the chaos factor could double, but if they do, it would only double if they kept the same kind of track size, with double the players. If they kind of scale up the size of the tracks, maybe it's still the same amount of chaos. But
yeah.
But yeah, I'm really jazzed at the idea of some new number of characters. There's nothing in the trailer that necessarily lends itself to if they're going to do more multiplayer options, but I would think, like, visually speaking, it does look probably as good, if not better, than Mario Kart 8, but it doesn't look like generationally that much better. So I'm wondering if they're saving some of that horsepower just to handle more players.
Yeah, it definitely looks the same or similar.
I'd also be curious. I don't know if this is going to be a Switch 2 exclusive. Well,
that's an interesting question.
I think it would be silly of them not to. Yeah, I think it's got to be an exclusive, because then it's like, okay, if people can buy it on the Switch 1, I guess I could see it both ways. It could come out on both, I guess, and it just has. It all depends on how Nintendo is going to handle the. Like, do they do upgrades? Kind of like, was it PlayStation and Xbox would have some upgrades to games that you played on the newer systems, right? So are they going to do something similar? Hey, you can still buy the game once, but here's a free patch or something for the Switch 2 version that makes it look better or whatever,
Yeah, right.
So I think it depends. Whatever their strategy is going to be with that, we already know they're going to be backwards compatible, so everything's just going to work out of the box. Switch 1 games on the Switch 2, but I do wonder how they'll handle graphical updates or. Yeah. So in that case, if it's on both systems, like if it's what we consider like a cross-gen game, right? That is crazy, because you have how many, like 150 Switch 1s out there? 150 million. I mean,
yeah,
way more than 150, Jess. So you get 150 million Switch 1s, and then however many Nintendo sells of the Switch 2 this year. I mean, this new Mario Kart could sell just an astronomical amount if it's across both systems. But anyways,
yeah, it would get the Switch over the line for the top selling system, probably.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like Switch 1, you get some price drops, and you get some other games. Like, I still think Nintendo's going to come out with some Switch 1 games. Even probably even through next year. So I could see it eclipsing that 160 million. Maybe it goes on its way to 175, 180 million. Like, it could set new heights for the next 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. Kirk or Trev, did you have anything to say about Mario Kart? The brief glimpse we got at Mario Kart 9 in inverted commas, because I'm calling it 9, even though I don't know if it's necessarily called that. You guys have any opinions or thoughts?
The only thing I have is that was one of the games I think I mentioned that Sam was excited about seeing my son as a launch title. So he was thrilled, and he was the first person to point out to me that there seemed to be 24 carts. So again, it's not a game that I play an awful lot, but I don't see how you could possibly have a Switch or a Switch 2 and not play a Mario Kart game. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm curious to see. I assume it's got to be a what do they call it? A drop title when it comes out right away.
Oh, like a launch title.
Launch title. Thank you. I'm almost certain that it would be. I don't think, as was mentioned before, that it could be something that would be included with it. I agree that it's too big of a game to be part of the to be in the box when you get the system.
Yeah. Yes, I think so too. I think it'll be a
Well,
launch title.
at least until the following holiday season, when they may bundle it, to push some more sales.
Yeah,
It'll
exactly.
have to be a launch title because, I mean, we're not even finding out anything really concrete until April, and then they have to allow time for distribution, pre-order windows, marketing, and all that. So we're probably not looking at the release till the fourth quarter. I'm calling
Right.
it. I don't see
Yeah, okay.
logistically how they would do it before that, but then again, they do surprise me. But specifically for Mario Kart, if it is 24 players, my question would be to what end? Is the online going to be strong enough to support that? Because Switch, for as good as it's been, the online has been not the best, right? Certainly compared to its competition. On a personal level, it just gives me 23 more people to potentially beat me, so I can suck even
Yeah.
more. But I think Justin made a good point too that maybe got buried in his comments. The tracks need to, if there is 24, the tracks have to fit it organically. So how is that going to work if they bring in existing tracks? Because there's still a good number of tracks, for as many as Mario Kart 8 has, from older games that have not been updated. So what are they going to do if they bring in a track from the N64 game? And
Maybe
24 people can race.
It'll be a special mode. You could go online for 24 player racing, but the core game for local player or even some online player would just be the standard track, standard number of racers.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would be the case, or if it was a set number or a set cup or something, or there's an option to go. But yeah, you're exactly right. You do have to make the tracks accommodate that number of players because it would be chaotic, as Justin said. The chaos factor is going to be pretty high. And I thought the same thing. I mean, I'm decent at Mario Kart, but online I'm not that. I don't win typically online against randoms from Japan because they're awesome. So, and if there's 24 of them, then I'm probably going to come in the bottom, 5. So it's it's tough. It's tough.
I was thinking, do you guys remember? And it's not on the Switch version, but the original Wii version of Mario Kart 8. The battle courses were not unique. They were existing tracks that they just modified to support like a battle. Maybe they could do something like that to support 24, make like an arena kind of based off an existing track and just take out a few texture things so you have more room to wiggle around or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Kirk that like if they do this, they'll probably have some other mode or some other cup or something like here's the XL cup or something that and it has different CC versions in that, and then it allows them to maybe port those other tracks forward, right? All the stuff from Mario Kart 8, some of these retro tracks, you can play them, but just in the typical 12 player cups. But I kind of hope so. Let's say that 24 player is a big feature. I hope it's not the main gimmick though. I liked the kind of zero gravity gimmick they had with Mario Kart 8, right? It added a lot of variation to the levels. Cool, I can go up on the wall here. I can go through these loops and of course you had underwater and gliding and all that. So I hope there's something else than just like bigger tracks and more players. Like we obviously didn't see any sort of double dash feature, like two people per cart. But I hope there's something else that they haven't shown yet. That's again, I just hope the gimmick isn't just more players and bigger tracks.
Yeah, surely not. I think
the rumor. Not that I look for rumors, but just specifically for the few seconds of game we saw, people were wondering, could it be like a Diddy Kong Racing open world type of thing? Because it looked like the track maybe went off kind of out to the side or in the distance. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have played Diddy Kong Racing or played it recently, but maybe they have. Or even like, I think it was Crash Team Racing on the PlayStation had that too. It was like open world kind of kart racing.
Yeah. Could be. Yeah. That was something that we've speculated for a while that might be the next Mario Kart could take it in that sort of direction.
I think it would be a good way to show off whatever the new horsepower is for the Switch too, because we don't even know. Is it 2, is it twice as powerful? I mean, I think an open world racer could really demonstrate that this is the next generation Nintendo system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And it could kind of be a similar, if you can call it like a Breath of the Wild moment, right? Where what other franchises could Nintendo do that with, right? Like it seems like Metroid Prime 4 is going to keep, maybe it has some open areas, but so did the other Prime games. It doesn't seem like it's a full quotes open world Metroid game, but I could very much see Mario Kart or a 3D Mario being ideal candidates for like opening up a bit more, that could be really interesting. I loved Diddy Kong Racing too, Trev. I think it was it was kind of this larger hub area, and you got to kind of drive around and maybe you could launch into races, right? I don't know, did any of you get the feeling of like Pixar's Cars movie from the Mario Kart? Like it just seemed like it was sort of like Radiator Springs. They're out in the...
Now that you mention it, yeah. I thought it does. Oh my gosh, I didn't think of it at the time, but as you're saying it, it's like, yes, of course.
We have cars at home.
Yeah, having a 18-month-old like Cars is.
Oh yeah, you'll be watching that for a few years. My kids still love it, honestly. Cars 2 is their favorite. Yeah, so there's a lot. Oh my gosh, there's so many questions, honestly, more than answers in a way. But it is what it is. We've got this tease. We know Mario Kart 9, whatever it's going to be called, is definitely a thing. I'm so excited to play it. Which brings me to my next point, which is they've got these hands-on experiences coming, as they say, around the world. It's not everywhere, but it is in a fair few locations. Oh, sorry if my dog's... I don't know if she spotted a cat outside. I'm not sure what's going on there. What are you doing?
Maybe he wants to go to one of the hands-on experiences.
Yes.
He's indicating interest.
Yes, indeed. Let me just see if I can get her outside.
Easier
While you're
for dogs
doing
to
that,
use
Jemma,
Joy-Cons now that they're like mice.
well, I'll just talk while you're doing that. Just kind of a little thing.
Sure.
If the Joy-Cons are mice, well, how about we bring Mouser from Mario 2 into the Mario Kart universe?
That is a great idea. Yes. There's someone who's missing. Yeah. Yes, the hands-on experience. Are any of you planning to try to go? I think they're open today for pre-registration or whatever. It's one of those lucky dip things. So we can't guarantee that we can go, of course, but we can try. What's the nearest to you guys? There's one in LA, New York, Dallas, and Toronto. Obviously in Canada. There's one in Melbourne, which is semi-close to me. I'll have to fly there for a couple of hours, but I'm going to try to get to that one. So
nice.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, I definitely I signed up for some this afternoon.
Nice.
For those that are looking into it, there's a lot of different times you can sign up for. Since it is kind of like a lottery raffle, you can sign up for each location, but only for one time slot.
Right.
So, but I thought that was cool that you could kind of hedge your bets. So it's like, hey, I'm willing to travel to, Dallas or New York. Cool. I can sign up for a time for either of those, and hopefully I get one of them. Right.
That's cool. What sort of time slots? Excuse me. What sort of time slots are they? Like 1 hour, 5 hours? What's the?
So it looks like there were 1 hour time slots.
Yeah, makes sense.
Which is kind of a lot to like for me. Like none of them are that close to me. So it is kind of a lot. I do hope, as far as like press goes, we haven't had E3 in forever, right? And E3 showing any signs of coming back. But I would hope that Nintendo would be hosting maybe some sort of press days or something, in lieu of like E3, that this is a big enough launch. I think it would be cool if they did something, even if that was in LA or something, just have something. But so I don't know. It's something maybe for us to look into, and we'll keep everyone.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But surely you're right. The press has to get their hands on it first, to give impressions and help, promote it. Really, Nintendo relies on them to get the word out a little bit. As to almost, it's like an independent source then, because Nintendo can say this is great, but then when you've got other people saying, hey, we've tried it and it's great, then it gets everyone else excited. So yeah, that would be cool. Trev or Kirk, are you gonna pre-register for either of those, or just wait and see what else might come our way?
It's during the school season, so it would be very hard for me to abandon the family to go play Nintendo as much as I would like to.
Yeah.
I do wonder, though, assuming, as Trev said, let's say this comes out in the fourth quarter, does that mean that Nintendo is going to be showing up at more industry events like PAX, say PAX West in September in Seattle? If the system's not out, then it would behoove them to be on the show floor there and be able to take advantage of that crowd to show it off. And then so it's more likely that I would be interested in attending something like that.
Yeah, same with PAX Australia, which is in October. Yeah, well, so Trev thinks quarter 4. Justin, what do you think for an actual release if we're getting the direct in April?
I think it's going to be sooner. I could see it launching potentially in like July. It would be kind of a weird time for them. I don't know that they've launched. I guess they've launched handhelds in the summertime before. I think I remember getting like a Game Boy Advance or a DS or something like that in the summertime. And they have launched, I think, some of their kind of spin-off ones. Like I think the Switch OLED model and maybe the Switch Lite came out like in August. So that's kind of leading up to, PAX. I think some of those, like you got to see those first at some of those hands-on events. So I don't know, July, August, maybe. I think it would be better for them to think about what the Switch 1 launch did. It kind of gave them 2 big selling times of the year, right? So you had March where you had millions of systems sold, launch titles, all that stuff. And then you had the big holiday season. They had Mario Odyssey that came out for the holiday game. I could see them doing something similar. The software is going to dictate the timeline for it, right? So let's say Mario Kart's ready for launch. Let's say that's in June or July or whatever time. Then you have 4 or 5 months till November, and then you've got the new 3D Mario launching for the holiday, or something like that. So I think if they wait till like October to launch this, or even November, then yeah, they're going to have a lot of systems stockpiled, and you're going to have probably a really large holiday season, but it's just going to be kind of all at once. And I don't know that they're going to want to have, again, it's going to come down to the software. Like with movie releases, you kind of don't want to, if you have a big launch, you want to have that time to your movie, right? You don't want to share that with another blockbuster. So like they're not going to want to have a big game like Mario Kart and 3D Mario launching at the same time or within a couple months. So that's why I'm kind of thinking it might be sooner. And they're announcing it. I think Nintendo wouldn't announce it now. Again, I don't think they were pressured from leaks. So I think we're 6 months away from launch.
Yeah. I tend to agree more with Justin at this point, probably Trev, sorry.
What the heck, Jemma?
But does Kirk want to weigh in? What do you think for timing?
I'm totally conflicted on when I want this system to launch, because if it comes out during the summer when Sam is home from college, that is really exciting because we could go pick it up together. We're going to get to play it together when it first comes out. That also means that he's going to be playing the system. So I'm not going to get nearly as much time on it as I would otherwise. So I think when he and I were discussing it, he goes back to school in August, probably at the end of August. So I was thinking it would be sometime around September. I guess I would like it to be sooner. I hope Justin's right that we're looking like at a July-August timeframe, if not sooner than that. Sam and I will just have to, fight over.
Yeah.
A lot of that will depend on launch titles too. I can still be busy playing Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I tend to think it'll be earlier rather than later, just because it is April, the direct. I think, 7 months till November is a long time between, a big direct and then to wait for the actual release. What was the time frame for the Switch? Wasn't it January to March? Was that how it worked?
Yeah, I mean, and technically they announced it in October, right?
True. Yeah.
So October to March.
I don't
So,
know
yeah.
if you can really compare it, though. I mean, the Wii U was so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to move on from
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
They
True.
needed
I'll
to
just
move.
throw this out there for thought, though,
Okay.
because Nintendo, and I don't know if you've seen the news today, you know, analysts are saying they want to have 20 million units, I think, ready. So production, I agree with Justin, games kind of dictate when it's going to launch, but also production, because Nintendo does not want to have a situation like they had with the Wii, where there's not enough units on shelves and you can go not just this holiday season, but even the next, where people can't find it, because that's going to kill a lot of the goodwill. They want to have
Yeah.
product on shelf. Will they have enough for the summer? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think that 20 million was they plan to sell that in this next fiscal year. So it wouldn't be. I don't think it's 20 million at launch, but if they did, that's awesome. But but like I have to go back and see how many units they had for the Switch 1 launch, but it was probably 2 or 3 million worldwide.
What does that mean? Is that like the first week or month? What does that mean exactly? Launch?
Yeah, just like for pre-orders and like
Oh, okay.
pre-orders went live, I think, in January of 2017. I remember pre-ordering mine a couple months in advance. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, timing wise. I might be looking at some clues that aren't there, but the hands-on events go up through June 1, at least in South Korea.
True.
Hong Kong and Taipei are still to be announced. So those could go maybe to maybe late June, right? These hands-on experiences. I could see those hands-on experiences leading up to launch. The April Direct, they're going to want to potentially open up pre-orders. I could see launch date pricing. And you're going to want at least 2 months for the retailers just to prep for that. So I think like the earliest it could launch would be like June 2, that would be, 2 months after the April Direct. The other thing I think it could be earlier is because we don't have E3, Nintendo's summer is kind of clear, right? They're not having to prep something for a big show like E3. In several years they haven't had to do that. So again, it's all going to come down to software, though. I think if production started in October, they'll have plenty of systems by June or July. And if it is later in the year, even more so. They'll have 10 million or something or more at launch. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but it's going to come down to the software. Like third parties are going to have some. Nintendo likes to have some diversity at launch, so they're going to want, maybe a big multiplayer game from them personally, a first party, decent sized single player experience. Maybe that's Metroid Prime 4 if it's ready. So if you had Metroid and Mario Kart from Nintendo first party, and then you had maybe a mini game style thing to show off the mouse cons, I could see them maybe having 3 at launch potentially. And then you got some other third parties ready with, maybe ports of Elden Ring or some of these other bigger titles that the Switch 1 missed out on. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Very interesting. I think it's an excellent point that after the Direct, they, when everyone's at their peak excitement, like we've just seen the new system, all the specs, all the games. Oh my gosh, I really want to order this thing. Pre-orders are open right now. Get online and order it. Right? That's when you want to open it if you can. So, yeah.
Just a couple more things to consider too, and which is why I thought maybe fourth quarter. Obviously, I'm sure I'd be excited if it was a summer release. But one, we know the Switch is going to be supported this year. Kirk already mentioned Xenoblade Chronicles X. We know about Layton, Metroid Prime 4. Obviously, those could also be on Switch too. But, is Nintendo going to have a Switch-focused Direct between now and April? I wouldn't be surprised.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But another thing to consider is, especially with backwards compatibility, they need to have their online setup up and running on day one. They can't do like they did with Wii U and 3DS and slowly be implementing eShops or these different features. They have to have them out of the box. So I think that's another reason why they maybe want to, not rush it out, not just the logistics with retailers and pre-orders and whatnot, but to make sure that their first impression is strong.
But yeah, I think that's a good point, Trev, and I agree that I think I could see maybe even. Did you guys notice that like February is kind of absent for Nintendo releases as well as events, right? So I could see a Nintendo Direct being next month, and that could still focus on Switch One software, right, Trev? And maybe it'll be the last one that Nintendo says there will be no news about the Switch successor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they always do.
Yeah. Is February a typical month for Directs? Because Justin, you seem to know the cadence pretty well. Do we usually get a Feb one?
Yeah, if you they've done Directs in February quite a bit. I'm checking their site to be sure, but yeah, it's a decently common month that they've done.
Yeah, I think that sounds logical to
And
me.
at the least, they could do another indie Direct.
Yeah.
It looks like last year they did a partner showcase, so kind of third party stuff, and that was February 21. In 2023, they had one on February 8 that was a proper full Nintendo Direct. February 9, the year before that. In 2021, there was February 17. Those were all proper Directs.
Yeah.
So February has been a consistent one. For the last few years. So, you also have the Pokemon Presents, the Pokemon Direct that I think that's typically the end of the month. So I think that's why Nintendo has tried to do earlier in the month, first or second week of February. So
no, that makes sense. That's something to look forward to. That will be interesting to see what's going to be on the last little, I guess, last hurrah for the Switch before the Switch 2 Direct in April.
And we don't want to presume, because 3DS was featured in many Directs after the Switch launched. So.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll support both for a bit longer, for a bit longer. That's for sure. Yeah, very exciting. Anything else that we wanted to discuss about this announcement? Before I guess we're at the end of the show now. We'll carry over our games that we're playing for next week, I think, at this point, since we're over the hour mark now. We have some brilliant games though, but we'll talk about those next week. Anything else anyone wants to add about the Nintendo Switch 2 teaser?
The kickstand looks a lot better.
Yeah, they really emphasized that, didn't they? It does look stronger though.
And I don't expect it'll be long before we have multiple colored Joy-Con too. Everyone's talking about how dark they are, and it just has those two little rings around the sticks. That won't last long. They'll customize those before too long.
And we'll probably have a couple color variations at launch too. They do a white
with the Switch.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, they had the grey ones at launch as well, didn't they, for the Switch? Which I guess look a little boring when you compare them to them.
Hey, I bought the grey ones.
Hey, so did I.
We're all dull.
I bought both. I had the two pairs.
Yeah, I think I got an extra kit also.
Yeah. Well, 2 wasn't going to be enough especially if you've got a family with kids, right? And 7 years ago, your kids would have been a lot younger too, Kirk. So you would have needed extra Joy-Cons. Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a lot to digest. It's all very exciting. Can't believe we're finally at this point where we have something concrete, even though it's still, all the specs, etc., as we've said, are still unknown. But that will be the stuff that will be announced in the next 2 months, come April the 2nd. Listeners, let us know your thoughts on the Switch 2, Nintendo Switch 2. Was it everything you wanted for now? Or did you want more? Are you looking forward to April the 2nd? Are you going to go and check out these hands-on experiences? I wonder what the capacity is for these hands-on experiences. Like how many people are applying and how many people are being accepted. You know, is it like a 1 in 10 chance, 1 in 100? I don't know. I feel like the odds are pretty low. I didn't get into their last experience they did. What was that? I wasn't experienced. It was the Nintendo Live thing in Sydney. I didn't get into that one. So
They should do them in more remote locations, like rural Ohio. So
yeah.
there's less competition, and it's easier for guys like me to get in.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine New York? I mean, that's huge. They're going to have millions of applicants right there. So
Yes, yeah.
And Tokyo would be the same. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me this week on an exciting episode. Yeah, we'll continue to talk about all things Nintendo week to week as we do. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you wanted to support us, we are on patreon.com/Pure Nintendo. Get ready for the next issue of the magazine to come your way shortly. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Blue Sky, so head on over to there and check us out on Blue Sky. But until next week, thank you and game on, everybody.